Good morning. I trust we are broadcasting and having a good time. Welcome to Earthstock's Sparkling Conversations. This is the first of a series of 7 conversations that are inspired by the themes of the days of the summit. And I am thrilled to have the theme of women and youth give rise to this conversation that is so important for us as well as ongoing generations to come into infinity, because we don't know when it all ends, and there is only this eternal now. And so the conversation we're going to be engaging in today is the transformation of education for future generations. And before we get into that, I want to talk to you a little bit about the different things that are available to you as viewers of Earthstock. There's an online virtual world where you can see 80 different movies, but I want you to watch this. And honestly, I also want you to interact with us. And you can do that by going to theconversation.cc and pressing the button for the Zoom window. And they have taking, they're having a watch party there. And the watch party is going to turn into the afterglow. After our 2-hour conversation, we're going to go over and join you in the watch party. It's not going to be broadcast, but it is going to be recorded. And so it will become a part of the ongoing legacy. I also want to say that YouTube is going to have the live event, and past event videos and interviews are all on YouTube. And Facebook has a live event as well. And so we've got lots going on. And so I want to take a moment with you, everyone, just to drop in. I don't know about you, but my life is just...
this one here.
No, go back to this. There is chaos going on. And so to be able to be with you
It's
in
this one here.
this moment,
Yeah, but you're not live.
this is
You're
what...
not in the right.
This is an ordinary
thing. Go
moment,
back here.
except that
You
it's
have to go
kind of
back to your live
extraordinary.
events.
And I have this thing with ordinary. And I've had this love-hate
to home.
relationship with ordinary. And it's because of that relationship
And you wanna
with
get
ordinary
ready
that
with
I came up with magic in
Josette.
ordinary moments. And you'll hear me talk about Mom. It's important to me because
See, you didn't
in
hit
our ordinary
the live.
lives, there are moments of magic
You have to hit
that make it
That's part of your
sparkle.
workflow.
You know, the old idea of the light bulb that
You
goes
might want to have a
on
2-box ready
when
with
you have an
Josette.
idea.
Got it.
That is part of the sparkle that gave rise to the sparkling conversations. I am a follower of Humanity Rising. Humanity Rising started at the beginning of COVID, when everybody got locked down. And it was the format of the panel coming and talking to us about things that were important in the world. And then Stan Pockrus's invitation to join him in his Zoom room afterwards that created the after chat that I became the moderator of in our almost 1,000 episodes. This is the format that has been suggested to me that gave rise to the Sparkling Conversations and the Afterglows. And so it is a true pleasure to be able to bring wonderful people into conversation with each other where you get to be a fly on the wall. And then you get to be in interactive conversation with us in the afterglow at theconversation.cc. And by far, this is the most fun I've ever had in my life. And it feels like I'm walking on the edge of a cliff about to fall over, but I know I'm not going to be falling over because Mom is always there to catch me. It's the magic in ordinary moments that makes this so exciting, because I never know when I need her to catch me, and I never know when it's going to feel like I'm just falling off the edge. And this, I think, is the kind of experience that we need to have to make peace be an exciting experience. Peace on earth is what I'm here to experience.
You have to.
And so I invite you to
talk.
consider that peace is more than we
Can't
have
hear?
ever considered.
No.
Peace is not a placid lake under the moonlight. No, it is sparkling like the water behind me. My name is sunlight, sparkling on the water. And it is the sparkling in that name that gives rise to the other part of the inspiration. And so I ask these ladies, these lovely ladies that are with me, I'm going to introduce, to sparkle with me this day. And thank you so much for listening to me. You've heard enough from me. Let me introduce the first of our speakers. Josette Lovemore is a pioneer in holistic education and human development, co-creator of the natural learning relationships approach. She has dedicated her career to helping families and educators deepen their connection with children, guiding them toward optimal well-being and wisdom. Hi, Josette.
Let's hear so.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
There we go. Thank you. It's lovely to be with you today.
Would you like to introduce yourself a little more?
Okay. My work is in helping folks understand how interconnected children and adults are. That as we are raising children, we are growing as adults simultaneously with children. And to self-reflect on that growth is an opportunity that we have in the reciprocal relationship between adult and child. And so I'll go into that more as it relates in the conversation. But the system I use is called Natural Learning Relationships, which bridges the world between child and adult, and creating environments for children that bring forth the innate capacities that are available in each age of childhood. So I'll get into that further as we discuss things. But Shannon, I want to give it back to you so you can introduce the other guests.
Thank you so much, Josette. I'm looking forward to hearing more. My next guest is Connie Baxter Marlowe. She's an author, filmmaker, and futurist whose work integrates Indigenous cosmology and quantum science. A passionate advocate for transformative education, she's known for her work with visionary elders and for creating new paradigms that foster trust and elevate consciousness. Hi, Connie.
Hi, Shannon. Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here. I'm just honored to be included. And yes, my relationship with education was actually when I was very active when I was raising my children in the 90s. And I formed a Parents for Choice in Education and was rattling lots of cages and ultimately had several forums in Aspen of people, of the educators, of the children, of the parents, and to speak about from their hearts about how education could be transformed at that time. I think that now, many years later, that education still needs its transformation, and so I think that what needs to happen is that we need to honor the innate genius in everyone, and bring forth systems that bring that forth and nurture that. And what one thing that's just really important leading up to education in the educational system is our parenting and our trust in that innate genius. Because with my association with the native people, I saw that everyone comes with a gift, and in the native way, you watch that child, you see where that child gravitates towards. If he gravitates towards the kachina carving grandfather, then the child gets to spend a lot of time with the kachina carving grandfather and picks up the cottonwood root and starts carving. Yes.
And thank you so much, Connie. I want to get into that more as we go on.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I'd like to move now to Tammy Hay. She's a devoted earth steward and the founder of the Million Vegan Grandmothers movement. She combines her expertise in spiritual nutrition with her love for the earth to inspire a holistic, nurturing approach to healing, education, and ecological preservation. And she's a water baby. I love that about you, Tammy. Can't hear you.
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you everyone for being here. I was just catching up on the bios a little bit as we were getting ready to start, and I've been in circles with other women that probably didn't know I was in the same circle with you that are presenting today, and it's such an honor to be here with all of you and get to know you better and what you're doing. And you know, we don't have to tap in very much as women to really know the value of children and what's happening to children now. It's very heartbreaking. But also what's happening to the babies of all species. And that's where my vegan energy comes in, and helping children make that connection. And it's even within my own family that I do this when I see that it's very normalized for even my grandson within his family to step on a spider if he feels like it. Just bringing that awareness of the interconnection to children is challenging in this world. And I remember reading a book many years ago, The Last Child in the Woods or the Forest, and wondering what that will be like for children to lose that connection and how we keep it alive. So that's what I'm about, and that's what I'm grateful for, being that grandparent. And I'll end with this, but my grandson just came back from a holiday and he said, Oma, you would love this restaurant we went to. There were flowers that we could eat, and they had that other stuff, you know, like animals, people ate animals there, but there was a lot of food that you would eat there, and it smelled like the earth, just like your home in the country. So, you know, it's beautiful to help children remember what the earth smells like, and what it feels like to preserve that and to grow food. So thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you so much. The next person that I'd like to bring on is Lisa Ayers. Lisa is an intuitive healer and educator who has spent her life in connection with the natural world. She brings a unique perspective to education, helping exceptional students navigate their spiritual and academic paths while fostering a deep connection to nature. And she's my friend.
And we're sitting side by side.
Can't hear you. Why can't I hear you?
Unmuted.
Can we hear? Okay, good.
Okay. And this is the joy of the first presentation. It's my honor to be here today. To have the perspective of myself having been in this school system in the 90s and having parents who were parenting in the 90s and now working in the system of education in Canada, which is a different perspective than I think from the other women up there. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I've spent my life really exploring that deep connection between spirituality, nature, and healing. Even from my earliest memories, my parents had a huge garden and a huge yard. I grew up in the lush rainforests of British Columbia, and that's where I found my sense of spiritual life.
And I suddenly realized
And that true connection to the divine comes from within us and not from in a book or in a building. I see that there has some problems with the broadcast. I'll try to ignore that. All of this has led me to found my own healing system, which is drawing down the new system of Reiki. And this practice weaves together my knowledge and wisdom that I've gathered over years of study and experience. And it's that spiritual experience that has really taught me to connect and be intuitive, listen to my body, and watch the world around me. And so I have been guided recently to start with exceptional students. And I'm going to be working in the high school system, helping these students navigate through the school system and learn to love learning. So that's what I'm speaking today.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. The richness and depth of this panel is really exceptional. And I would like to start by considering what aspects of the current situation have led to the current situation. What needs to be fixed? Like, I know that most of us grew up in a time of we were sat in our chairs and we listened to the teacher wash stuff textbooks that our previous 6 generations learned from. And we know that the learning curve, the amount of things that are being learned by human beings at this time is on an exponential curve. And so how do we go from where we're, regurgitating the same old wrong information into opening to amazingness? And I'm going to start with Josette. Would you like to start?
What a gift. Thank you. I would love to start. As you're speaking, it's just resonating, just reverberating through my being. Listen to the children. Don't be just pouring in what you want them to know. You've got to help them to develop their whole being and respect who they are. They come in with their own purpose. They come in with their own gifts and meaning. And at each age of their development, there are inborn capacities available if given the right environment to flourish and grow. So I'm listening to intuitive healing and grandmothers who are in tune with indigenous cultures and consciousness. And as consciousness evolves throughout childhood, or I should say access to consciousness evolves throughout childhood, we want to be very in tune with who is this child as an individual, not be educating to some social standard or social norm, as if every child fits into that. So to start with, to educate in a way that we're listening to children. Who was it? It was Connie who said in her opening statement, watch where the child gravitates towards and allow that child to be in connection with the people who are embodying what that child is interested in. Give that child an opportunity. So educate to the child's interests, listen to who the child is, and create environments that bring forth their natural capacities. That would be my opening statement. If we're going to educate towards transformation, we have to create opportunities for a shift in perspective, but not just in children. We're not educating them to change them, a shift in perspective of ourselves simultaneously. So with that opening, I want to hand it over to my colleagues here and invite you into the conversation.
Thank you so much, Josette. I'm going to invite all of us to be on screen. Oh, how beautiful that is. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mary, also for being on screen. Although I don't think you intended to, we're going to have you come back and be a part of the conversation at the end when you bring back Hey, Michael, I want to acknowledge our tech team, and we're feeling into this new environment and what needs to be done in the moment. Mary is going to come back and give us a summary and teasers for questions that we're going to be indulging in the conversation.cc in the afterglow. But Josette, you brought up the Indigenous ways. And that is an opening through which I would like to invite Connie, because she has had intimate interactions with the Indigenous people. Please unmute and talk to us, Connie.
So you got Connie on right now?
Well, yes, and this is so important for these times. The environmental crisis has called forth the native voice, the native heart, the native spirit, the native knowing, to the connection to all that is, to the sacredness and oneness of all life, and the connection to the cosmos. And the new science is bringing forth a proof of that it's a holographic universe, that everything we do, say, think, and feel affects all of creation. And I saw this through the visionary elders who came into my life in the 90s, when I was looking for the missing pieces of the paradigm, because I knew and felt that our paradigm, our way of being, was out of balance. We couldn't explain everything. I wasn't going to base my life on a paradigm that had holes in it. And so I asked the universe, what are the missing pieces? And looked in Europe and found the same thinking. And then the native elders started coming into my life, visionary elders. Wallace Blackout, one of the great Lakota elders, whose daughter and grandchildren are here, and even great-grandchildren are here at Summit to share that deep wisdom. It just changed my life when I heard that connectivity. And I brought forth a book called The Trust Frequency, 10 Assumptions for a New Paradigm, to give people the tools to trust a conscious, loving universe. And I used those tools because we have to, once we get it, we have to walk it. And that's what feeds the collective consciousness, and what is going to bring forth the new earth, the new way of being. And I walked it, and with raising my children. And I just want to say that to people, to trust the loving universe, that our children came with a gift. And with my children, each one, I carved a path for them, listening to their soul's gift in absolute trust. I let my son drop out of first grade because he said, "Mom, my feelings tell me I don't belong here." And I said, "Oh, well, Obi-Wan Kenobi said, trust your feelings, Luke." And because I trusted to the nth degree, I let him drop out of first grade. And I didn't homeschool him. I just let him call the shots at 7 years old. Okay, so I'm just saying to you, all parents, trust the universe. When the student is ready, the teacher will come, and it will come in various forms. And all three of my children had very unique childhoods according to their soul's destiny. And now they're in their late 30s and 40s and are flourishing. My son Johnny is a major photographer in Los Angeles. I'm a photographer. His father's a photographer. My father was a photographer. And now Johnny is flourishing because he came with a gift. And he didn't have to be a little boy who sits down and listens to the teacher and tells the teacher what the teacher wants to hear. But on his last day in school, a little girl came forth and she raised her hand when the teacher said, "This is Johnny's last day in school." And she said, "But Johnny, how are you going to get a job?" Okay, our children knew at age 7, a little girl no less, what she was there for, to tell the teacher what the teacher wanted to hear so she could survive. Okay, this is called survival. You've got to show up for the system, but you don't. Okay, you can trust the universe that child came with a gift, and to carve that life path for that child, to open the doors for your unique child's gift is what I want to just give you the courage to do. The universe will show up. When the student is ready, the teacher will come. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. That's quite an adventure you have had. I, you've done it right, it seems to me, and I commend you. Fighting the system isn't easy. And I imagine I'm going to hear more about how you fought the system. But I do want
No
to.
fighting, no fighting.
No fighting. Okay.
Trusting, allowing.
And good. That's excellent.
We swooped and darted. We didn't fight. We swooped and darted.
Swooped and darted. Oh, being swallows. Oh, I love that. But I do want to go into, talking about the system that we are a part of. We have been indoctrinated really quite deeply into getting along within the boxes that have been created for us by the agreements that previous generations made. And we're in the process of, breaking out of the boxes. And Tammy, you are doing a lot of the breaking of the boxes, and you're activating a group of dynamos that the world is not really aware of, because we've been told not to be aware of grandmothers. And the power of grandmothers to change the world. Honestly, the powers that be who think they're so powerful, they don't know what's going to hit them. And we're going to do it in a delightful way, as Connie says, without fighting. We're just going to change the world. That's all. That's the way I see it. How do you see it?
Well, thank you. And Connie and Josette, thank you. It's very much what you say, the children are walking us home and we're listening deeper and deeper still. And the good news is we're already in the middle of a dismantling of a system that hasn't worked. And we're in the middle of the cycle of change, of chaos. And it feels pretty crazy if you don't have any spiritual grounding, if we don't have any footing under us. And if we do, as many grandmothers do that have been saying, no, not on my watch. And thank you, Connie, for being one of the mothers that were able to say that. As a mother, I couldn't really change my husband. And so my kids unhappily were part of a system to some degree and found a way to fit in, which is what kids have to do, find a way to fit in and find a way to train to be good little marching soldiers. But the children being born now, and maybe forever, but I don't know. I can just speak to my delightful experience with grandchildren and these young children that are here now, is they already know. They already know. I mean, they already know. They already know what feels good. My granddaughter said the other day, and I don't know who she's channeling. She's 5, and she says, "What are you bickering about?" And then she says, "Wait a minute. What does bickering mean again?" Such an old-fashioned word. No one says it in her life. I'm like, where did you hear that word, Hadley? And so she just said, it doesn't feel good to bicker. And so it's kind of like what Connie's saying. The children know that bickering isn't going to work anymore. It's an old system that was forced upon us. It wasn't our natural system. So our natural systems of trust and re-engaging in nature's way of teaching us has come full circle. And I think what's happened, especially in the North American community, because we have quite a few grandmothers in our Million Vegan Grandmothers community, is that in the North American system, a lot of grandmothers were not held in very high regards. And I even feel that way to some degree with my children. They weren't really raised with a bunch of elders that were held in high reverence because of their amount of years and wisdom that they have been on this planet. And I interviewed a Mexican woman not too long ago who was very steeped in her traditional ways of being. And I said, well, my mom, she wasn't really that tuned in. So, I'm not really sure if she was my role model. And she said, that's very much a white person's thought form. She said, even if our parents suffered a little bit, maybe with addiction or whatever, they still were teaching us the whole time. And we saw it that way. We really did. We saw it as their time spent with us, and even watching their lessons that they taught us through whatever they needed to learn was wisdom. And so it takes the judgment out and it leaves it right at smack in the middle of trust. And so just bringing it a little bit further in what I bring forth here today, and I'm sorry if I'm a bit tired. I'm at an Airbnb with some family and they stay up really late, and then I get up really early and I haven't hardly slept. But is I became vegan when I was really steeped in what was happening to all species and how our planet is dying pretty rapidly in front of us, and how a huge amount of land use is for animal agriculture, and the animals didn't sign up for it. And there's only 4% of wildlife left on the planet compared to domesticated animals, including humans. And so what I want my grandchildren and the grandchildren of all species to be able to know is that they will have a home and they will be safe in their home. And I don't know if we can exclude that. And I was talking to, and I'm just going to put a little shout out to a grandfather, Captain Paul Watson, who was the founder of Greenpeace, went on to start Sea Shepherd, and now the Captain Paul Watson Foundation, because they said he was a bit too radical they wanted him to be a bit more subdued, you know. He's in prison right now, so I'm giving a little shout out, falsely accused because a big Japanese ship was about to launch as one of the largest whale slaughter ships on the planet. And they managed to imprison him before he intervened, what he calls aggressive nonviolence, meaning that he will destroy the stuff that's destroying the animals of the sea, but he will never hurt a human. And this is what happens in a system of corruption. But the interesting thing now is that with high-speed internet, we get to see it. It can't be hidden from us anymore. So there is some real deep good in technology. And we're all part of that. We're all part of a system that we have to stop normalized violence, and not just against humans, but against all life. because I think we're moving into a place, I mean, I'm praying we're moving into a place where what we put on our plate is part of peace or violence.
Yeah.
We
Thank
can't
you so
laugh
much,
that
Tammy.
pain away. So thank you.
Absolutely. You know, that's one of the things that we are bringing to the sparkling conversations are the passions that move us. These are the reasons that we are in the movements in which we are a part of. You know, Humanity Rising, you know, we did 3 years of kind of caring for each other and creating community. And then Jim Garrison moved to Washington to midwife the UAP UFO bill through Congress. And, you know, that inspired me to start the Jim's Nuggets blog that I write to transcribe his words into text so more people can read them, because they're so deep and eloquent and knowledgeable, and it's a perspective that you don't hear in the news. And what you said, Tammy, about the news and what we are getting inspired me to talk about this, you know, because we at September, when I started Jim's Nuggets, it was all going to be about UAPs and NHIs, non-human intelligences, and I was all up and interested in what was going on. And then the war happened in the Hamas Israel, and the dialogue changed. The words that came out of Jim were different than I expected them to be, and I learned more about politics than I ever wanted to know. And it's really important that we are aware of what is being broadcast and be real participants. And Josette, you've got your hand up. Come on in. And you've got to unmute. Activate your mic. Josette?
Thank you so much. I just want to bring the conversation back to children.
Okay.
I know there are these things going on in the world, and they're big, but what's going to change is that we raise a generation of children as parents, as grandmothers, as supporting women to women in whatever ways we hold each other up, in every way we hold each other up. And that is to embrace well-being when we see it, especially as it raises up as we see it in our children. And so I understand that there definitely are these things happening in the world, and they're important to pay attention to. But it's like floating down a river. If you not just floating, but canoeing down a river, if you pay attention to the eddy in the rock, you'll end up right straight smack into the rock. If you pay attention to the V stream in the river, you will end up in the flow of the river. So if we pay attention to the well-being that's available in children at each age of their growth, understand their field of knowing, the way they see, that we won't insist that children see what we see, but that instead we create a way of communicating that speaks the language of their developmental moment, and we support their ability to belong to a tribe, to a community, to a family, that they develop a sense of trust in themselves and in the world around them. Very important aspect of human development, that they develop a sense of self that is actually autonomous and can act and be willing to stand alone. Very important, especially the kind of things that you're discussing, and not following the crowd and following the group. And then also to see the interconnectedness of themselves with all life. and the inner relationships we have with that interconnectedness. These things are available throughout childhood, of course, age specifically. But when we nurture these capacities in children, they will definitely be able to grow up and create I want to say a better world, a world that responds to these horrors. So I see a lot of shaking heads. I'm going to be quiet and give my colleagues a chance to speak.
Well, thank you so much, Josette. And truly, the importance of coming back to the conversation. It's good to have an awareness of the other subjects, but coming back to what is truly important in this now is Lisa, come and talk to us.
Thank you. I'm listening to everyone speak about the adult world, and what I notice working with the kids is that they are fully aware of what's going on, and they don't like it.
And they are wanting to learn and willing, because we have the internet now, they are willing to question. And in our education system, we can teach them how to question and how to look for quality information and how to look for outside the mainstream information. What are new views? What is the cutting edge? Because what's happening, or what has happened in education, is we're typically 10 years behind. But now, because we have the internet, teachers can say, go online, find out what's happening today, and let's talk about that. And I love that. But what is, I think, a struggle for many of those kids is they just can't understand why. Why does the system work like this? Why don't they just not do that? Is the question I get so many times. And then we begin to talk about politics and systems, and they start to realize, oh, this is not working. And they are intentionally stopping and choosing not to and stepping out. I am surprised by how many students I work with who choose to live more vegetarian lives, who choose to live cleaner lives, who choose to embrace their spirituality and their intuition and their feelings, just because they see that what is happening in the world, or what has been happening, isn't working. They're much more aware. And I love it. And that's why I love working individually with them, because in a classroom, you often don't get to do a deep dive. But when you're working one-on-one with the child, you can answer those questions and you can say, hey, let's have a discussion about that. Like, why is it that we have a drug problem? You know, they say, well, why don't they just not let the drugs across the border? Well, let's have a conversation about that, right? And so then their minds open, and and you just see the sparks flying, and they get energized and excited about making change. And so what I guess the point that I want to make is, if we can be mentors for these kids who already are so open, then instead of disconnecting, they'll re-engage. So many kids are seeing the adults in their lives in a system that hasn't worked. The adults are burnt out and, you know, just exhausted in the system, and they're just checking out and saying, I don't want to be in this system. But if we can show them adults who are thriving in the world and thriving in spirituality and thriving in their connection on the planet, then that's what we're going to get. So the more of us who can become, I guess, public figures who can be open to our youth, the better. And that's
where I wanted to go with that.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That your interaction with youth of today is very, very valuable, and I appreciate your comment. Connie, I see your mic is active. Would you like to have a say?
Yes, and it's just wonderful to hear each of you bring in the word trust. Okay, because our book is the trust frequency. There, there are all frequencies, and as we walk in absolute trust, we shift frequencies, and so the laws are expanded in the different frequencies, and there's more information coming to the earth now because of the earth rising in frequency, and so our children are accessing this information through social media. For one, social media with children has been denigrated, but for me, it's really connecting the heart of humanity. Social media, and and as the kids access this information, and they're connected heart to heart with their peers, and with all of us, with their grandparents, with that I follow my granddaughter on Instagram, so I'm with her every day and then commenting every day. And so one thing that was for me, I get information in really strange ways, through movies, through all kinds of things. And do you remember Jurassic Park, everybody, when they were all stuck in the room and they couldn't get out, and the child came and operated the computer? The adults didn't know what to do, and the child came. So that's what gave me the information that we have to just let these children learn and grow on this emergent time, on this evolutionary upward spiral, and they will lead us ultimately. I mean, the elders are really important. What we've learned and gleaned and grown through our years on the planet, and so that's really important. But listening to them is key, and trust in our hearts, in their souls journey, and letting them know that they came with a gift, and that they came on a journey to wholeness, to their self-love, that everything happens for them, not to them, in a loving universe. This is what we bring forth in our work. So then the whole bullying thing takes a flip into, okay, what is this person saying to me? Why are they bullying me about that? Oh, that's a part of myself I don't love yet. So there's a whole new way of looking at the loving universe and shifting our frequencies. So I'll just contribute right now.
Oh, I love that. That's a part of myself I don't love yet. I love that. It's like shadow work. It's like
Absolutely.
yeah, it's exactly what that is. It's like, I'm not going to project this out onto the other. I'm going to look at myself and say, okay, what self-reflection? And self-reflection is the key to transformation, which bringing that back and saying, what's the message here? What's the meaning to me? What do I need to shift in myself? I love that. Thank you for saying that.
I am so happy to have you all here. This, what we're doing here is not only informing the adults that we have sussed the situation and that we see opportunities for change, but we're also telling the children, the youth, that we care and we want them to do better. Because when we do better, they do better. And when they do better, we do better. When everybody does better, man, we're going to fly. And that's really, what I'm deeply interested in is learning to fly with everybody else. And it takes connection and listening and different subjects than what we were brought up with. When we were brought up, we were taught the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now, I'm sorry, reading is important. Writing is actually an art. And arithmetic, well, some people are experts, and we've got computers now. And logic, it seems to me, would be a better subject to take. So maybe we should be doing the 3 L's or something, like love, Lisa.
So,
I watched this great interview with a teacher about math and why do we learn math? And do you know why we learn math? Because it teaches us logic and step by step understanding and breaking down of problems. If you've got a great teacher, they're teaching you multiple different ways to look at a problem. And what I love about math today, math was my worst subject. And it was because we were taught you must think about it this way. You only think about it this way. This is the one way with the one answer. And I actually had to relearn math. And did you know there's 5 different ways to think about math questions? Who knew? And so we're now teaching students, hey, if this isn't working for the way your brain works, do you know we can look at this problem from a spatial point of view? We can look at this problem from an emotional point of view. We can look at this problem from a step-by-step point of view. And it blows my mind. And I'm like, oh my God, math makes so much more sense now. And so that is why we learn math. It's not necessarily because we need arithmetic, because, 1 + 1, as long as we know how to work money and we don't get, messed in life, that's okay. It's teaching us how to think about problems. And I ask that question so much in my life as well. And I will also say that physics is becoming a real thing in our world. And I want our children to understand the quantum reality in our world. And that comes from math too. So I still think it's important, or I now think it's important. Maybe I didn't before.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. I'm so glad to know that there's different ways of looking at math. The quantum element of physics is, I think, at this point in time in humanity's development, it's something that is really foundationally important. And so, yeah, physics is definitely a door that we need to open for children. And Connie, thank you so much for activating your mic so I know that you want to come in. Come on in.
Well, yes, it's that scientific paradigm of Newton and Descartes and all that that separated us from our hearts and our spirits. That's been driving, it drove the Industrial Revolution and all this supposed affluence, but at such a loss to all of creation, basically, except that it put us on the fast track to reconnecting with our hearts because it's so obvious it doesn't work. So that was important. We had to go through that and transmute the energies of fear and separation and scarcity through that fast track that Newton and Descartes and all those guys put us on to get to this place where the new leading edge science is showing us, as I mentioned, that it's a holographic fractal universe, that the whole universe lives within the smallest plankton scale. And so that then all of a sudden we're related to all of creation as the indigenous peoples have known and nurtured throughout the millennia. And so it's just really important, as someone brought up the new science, that it's just transmuting everything, transforming everything into that knowing. And so for me, that's just a key piece of the education process, is to bring in that new science and connect people, connect the children with all of creation, which is the native way. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The Indigenous have so much to teach us. And the other things that we're learning that we need to get in touch with, for example, Tammy, when I think of NHIs, non-human intelligences, I think about, for example, Danalia with the listening field who talks to trees. And the beauty of the messages that are coming through, and the animals that we have traditionally eaten. It saying that, it feels really wrong now. It didn't before. I have learned, and I imagine that when we're teaching our children about non-human intelligences, and that they can talk to their dog, and they can talk to a cow, and they can talk to a sheep, and that these are friends of ours, a huge amount of change is going to happen. And this is going to change the world that their parents live in.
Yeah, well, the word capitalism came from the word kappa, meaning head, and it was the selling of livestock, and even the thought of a livestock, they're not really, they're going to their death stock, and most of it is in concentration camps. So we're shifting capitalism to compassion, and meaning that no life is for sale. And we're seeing that in our human world. I mean, I know when I was getting a lot of, my daughter's a veterinarian, and I was getting a lot of flack about, not from her particularly or specifically, but from people about how irresponsible it was to not microchip my dog. And I'm getting a little controversial here, but it's like, wow, do you know why they started microchipping dogs? Is because we could pay for the technology of microchipping a living being and see how it works out. And we pay for it. Now I don't have to focus on that, and I don't have to microchip my dog. But if we don't look at the connection between what we've done to animals, put them on a rape rack, impregnate them, and then steal their babies so that we could have their milk. If we don't look at that, then we don't make the connection to what we're seeing happen in a world at a large scale of losing our children, treating women with such inequality, them as ownerships, and doing what we want and putting them down to a body part. Like, just think of how we talk about flesh food that we eat, a rump or a loin or a breast. So that's the connection I make in the most compassionate way I can. And my daughter still feeds her children flesh and secretions of animals. And I love my family. But I told them I would always be honest with my grandchildren. So I have very honest conversations with them. And we watch things and we go to sanctuaries, and they actually see the intelligence and the caring of animals. One of our vegan grandmothers, she owns a sanctuary called Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, and she used to have a cattle farm in Texas. She's still in Texas. But one day she said to her husband, I can't do this anymore. How come we don't slaughter our own animals? And he says, I can't do that. I raised them. So, they would truck them off. And she said, this is wrong. And she sat for 2 or 3 days and she cried. And she said, we either stop doing this and we turn this into a sanctuary. Her name is Renee King Solomon, if you haven't heard of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. Or she said, I have to leave you and I want to buy this. I want to buy our cattle and start a sanctuary. So she goes out in the morning and she calls for them and they come running and she's snuggling with them. And it's the first time my partner, who's also vegan, saw this video, he started to cry. He said he had never seen a human interact with a cow like that, because we don't want to show that footage. We don't want to show that footage because why would we want to show that footage? Because we want to take a detachment from that. And it's not a judgment. It's an awakening that we're in. And if we don't need to, why? That's the question. Now, it's not a judgment that there's some people in the world that may need to eat flesh still. There are places that might be so, but the majority of the world, it's not. And so it's coming home. It really is coming home. There was a lot of old tribes. I'm part of a modern day Essene ministry, and they were the light workers that didn't eat animals or flesh excretions. And that's a new documentary that just came out in our community called Christspiracy. There's a lot of evidence that Jesus didn't eat even fish. So I think we're just returning home. And as we awaken and take off one layer after another of what we've been told to do, as Dr. Will Tuttle says in the World Peace Diet, we were just following orders.
Yeah. And we've been following orders for a very, very long time. And it's time for original thought. It's time to make our own choices. And I believe that that is one of the most important things to teach children.
Mm-hmm.
It is through, yes.
That they have a choice. A lot of the grandmothers, Susan Hargraves, who started Animal Hero Kids, she didn't have a choice. She couldn't stop eating animals till she left home, because when she told her parents she didn't want to eat an animal, especially some of the ones that they had on their farm, she was told that that wasn't a choice. And so it's being given the choice as a child as well.
Yeah. And we need to learn how to eat, how to grow food, and how to eat. And Josette, I know you wanted to jump in there, and then we'll go to Lisa. Come on in, Josette.
Thank you. Coming back to our educational systems that teach separation, that teach objectification, that teach the idea that we are not in any way interconnected, is part of the problem right there. So it's a critique I'm making of traditional education systems that neglect the interconnectedness of knowledge and being, our whole being. We are interconnected wholes. We are systems within systems, so to speak. And the under evaluation of relationship with each other, with all beings, all life. And so I want to emphasize an educational approach that emphasizes the transformative power of relationship between adult and child, that respects a sense of place in the world, that respects truth, trust, honesty, that respects life and unity within community and self-determination. We talk a lot, so far we've talked a lot about the indigenous cultures, but there's a great deal to be gained from the African cultures as well. The interconnectedness within communities and the sense of work and responsibility. I am because we are is a truth among the African tribes and the African culture. And cooperative economics and creativity and faith. These are all central themes within the African culture that is could be brought back into our educational systems. That would be so valuable to teach the children the interconnectedness between knowledge and heart, knowledge and being, that they're not separate, that we're whole, that we're whole beings, and the information we gain from our intellect is part, but the information we gain from our heart is also a very important part that we must listen to in order to respect the whole.
Beautiful, Josette. That's really beautiful. And I just wanted to say, regarding the eating of animals, etc., that I think we're moving into light bodies, and that it's becoming a natural thing that we don't need that level of protein anymore. so it's a natural progression. And also, I just wanted to say that for me, I was talking about social media. I mean, my feed is so full of animals loving on each other and humans. I mean, if that doesn't slap the heart open, I don't know what does. I mean, it's just the extraordinary love between different species of animals and the mother animals and their babies and people and children and etc. I mean, it's phenomenal. So I just want to say that it's happening, everybody. In one way or another, it's happening, and our heart is opening, and we're getting those clues, and it's all coming to pass. Everything everyone has spoken of. So, thank you.
I thank you so much, Connie. I completely agree that it is happening, but it is not happening without our participation. We need to help it happen. Stan Pockris talks about this is the dawning of the age of helpfulness. And truly, if we took that to heart and taught our children that, it would be. Because when we get out of ourselves and listen to others to see how we can help, everything changes. And I see Lisa's got her hand up. Come on in.
Oh, geez.
I have so many things to comment on. I'm glad you brought in the age of helpfulness, because I wanted to bring that in. And if we can mentor for our children that being helpful is and kind and compassionate, they will step right into that role. And Connie, you are so right. One of the blessings of the internet and social media is us being able to see something more than what we're being told, what we're being taught by the main system. And you are absolutely right. I see human and animal interactions that we never would have even known were possible if we were stuck being told cows and pigs are stupid. And so it opens up a whole new way of thinking about the world, and that is a huge blessing that we've gotten from the internet and social media. It's fantastic. I want to bring up something a little bit controversial, because here we are. So let's talk about it. We all want to influence our children and to teach them the importance of our own values. And when we have a public school system, of course, there needs to be this central neutralness of it. And if we want to bring in this spiritual sense, how can we do that? Through the public system, which is fairly neutral. What is the role of parents and villages in teaching our children about our communal values and morals, if we're going to have a public system? Because in Canada, and especially in Vancouver, where I'm from, there could be a class in every single child might be from a different country. And so cultural and moral and religious things are different. So how do we mesh that and find the commonalities and then bring those commonalities into the education system? In BC, we are working, I've just started to research it, but we are working very hard at bringing in the First Nations approach to education into our education system. It is a mandate of the system. And there is a plan for every subject with an Indigenous perspective. And it's amazing. We're starting to have outdoor classes. And so we can bring in all these morals and understandings and connections with how beehives at the school gardens. We can start to teach our kids from kindergarten all the way up through college about these things. And the values and the morals are there, which I love. So I would love to open the floor and just ask this controversial question.
I would like to start by saying the school systems aren't neutral. They have a serious and very impactful agenda. So for starters, one of the grandmothers has been trying to get the milk program out of the schools and replace it with oat milk or soy milk, or at least the children have a choice. They're showing that children are dumping out about 50% of the milk. We know that 65 to 85%, depending on whether they're Latino, people are allergic to lactose, but everyone's allergic to the protein molecule in milk that is made for a baby calf to make him 600 pounds in no time. So it's not neutral. So she was kicked out of the school system as a grandmother, trying to say, and she's working with Dotsie Bosch, who was an Olympian cyclist. And when her ability, she was the oldest Olympian cyclist to win. And she has a website called Switch for Good. And she's been working really hard to get the milk program out of the school system and replace it with something. And even the school system food. To heavily pollute our environment. So, and our children are getting these messages constantly bombarded with these messages. Milk is good for you. Milk makes a body strong. Beef makes you strong. These are the messages that our children are getting. So there's no neutrality in school. There's an agenda, and there's been an agenda for a very long time. And my first education in early childhood and looking at learning styles, the school system meets very, very, very few percent, very small percent of children's learning styles, less than 20% now, they're saying. And I was one of those children who, I'm sure that if I was in the time of heavily medicating, which unfortunately over 50% of our children are medicated by the time they're 18. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. These are brain altering medications. And but would have been one of those children that were told that I was attention deficit for sure, because I was very, very uninterested in what was going on in school. So I was daydreaming out the window. I grew up in the bush in Northern Ontario, and I was just waiting for the school day to be done so I could get outside and go back to the river and watch the pollywogs grow. So it's not a neutral agenda, and whether we make it more inclusive or not could be really helpful, but we have to look at the undercurrent of what they're trying to brainwash our children into knowing and how that impacts them at a very, very young age. And then replacing it, like you said, with things that help them flourish and grow and gain more autonomy. But how do they know if they're just doing the status quo of what everyone else is talking about? Because the normalized violence, death, and destruction is still mainstream.
Yeah.
And that's what we're breaking through.
Good for you, Tammy. Thank you for your work in the world. Josette, you've got your hand up. I'd like to include you. Come on in. Activate your mic.
Thank you. Lisa, I so appreciate some of the things that are happening in Canada, but those kinds of things are not happening in the United States, unfortunately, in terms of integrating Indigenous wisdom into traditional education. However, there is a large teacher in services where teachers learn new ways that are introducing a respect for diverse views. And in that respect for diverse views, different cultural values are to be respected, which is beautiful. It's, it comes in slowly, it comes in gradually, but it is coming in. If we want to change the educational system, then the approach is professional development of the teacher. Teachers ultimately run the classroom. And what happens in the classroom is the teacher's guidance. And so influencing educators, another one of my pet topics, to really create the learning environment to respect all life, to speak to the developmental field of knowing of the child, to create that nurturing environment that supports what's naturally developing in the child, then the child will have see themselves as socially valuable. And if we want social justice in the world, we have to raise a generation of children that sees themselves as making social contributions in relationship to their developmental capabilities or capacities. So, you know, each child at every age has something to contribute. And if we respect that diverse contribution, then that child sees themselves as socially valuable and will begin to create a world of social justice, if that's what we're looking for. Of course we are. And so influencing the teachers, administration is a whole nother topic. Anytime I can influence an administrator, wonderful, but really it's the individual I'm going after. And then to help teachers understand how to create a space in their educational approach that gives children the opportunity to learn this respect for diversity, respect for diverse views, and see themselves as socially valuable, as having something to contribute.
Thank you so much, Josette. You know, talking about this brings up another aspect of how I see what has happened for me. And Humanity Rising has made an incredible difference in my life. And we're working, because of working with Jim's Nuggets, I've started using AI. Now, I don't use it as in artificial intelligence. I use it as in augmented intelligence. I am assisted by AI in order to create the transcripts. I check what it does, but it makes it so much easier. And on the influence of AI and how we integrate AI into our common ground. What I envision, you know, Stan Pokras created the After Chat. Well, he's also created othernetworks.org, which is the archive of Humanity Rising. And the value that I got in my 4 years of watching almost daily, it has expanded my awareness of what's out there and who works on what, and where could my interest lead me next. And the ability of the youth of the future to be able to access our presentations. Josette, yours was 2 years ago, but that is there forever. And they will be able to go back to that and find out what you thought in that time period and what you were bringing forward. The knowledge that is available to us once we have augmented intelligence to be a librarian for us, where the generations to come can come into the library and say, well, I'm interested in vegan grandmothers and ways of learning that are innate in us. Who do I listen to? And I would present these different people to listen to, or maybe they would provide transcripts or summaries. The amount of depth of availability of access to thoughts that we are presenting to each other in these Humanity Rising and the Sparkling Conversations and the after chats and the afterglows, this richness will be available. The thing that I want to suggest is that we need to think about how we are, not virtually, but in real life. How do we nurture these things within not just the children in the schools, but in our villages? Because it takes a village to raise a child. The nuclear family cut off our women are supposed to be octopuses, and we are octopuses because of our connections. We have had them truncated by the four walls that have been created around our nuclear families. And so I put it to you, how do we recreate our villages? And I think it is in alignment with the indigenous ways of the longhouse, where people got together in the mornings and they decided together what needed to be done and who was going to do the things that needed to be done. And then they would go out and they would do the things that needed to be done. And then they would come back for dinner and celebration and having meals together. I want to see what you think, because it's part of the pattern that I was given, or that came through me, our heart gardens, and interconnected hearts of communities where we disseminate knowledge and we teach our children, we grow good food and good kids. And that's my idea. But I want to hear what you think. Teaching our children, what spaces do you see our children being able to learn all of the things that are coming out, so they don't get shunted into new slots? Instead, they're provided a tray of possibilities. I'm going to ask Lisa to come first.
This is a really good question. We worked really hard at having a village for our children. And a village meant different cultures, meant different age groups, meant gathering together for food and celebration on a regular basis.
Talking to our children about who's in their group, who's in your network, who can help you learn about this. For an example, my daughter's purchasing her first car. And we said, okay, well, who do you know who knows about cars? Who can we ask for help? Who can we ask to teach us what we need to know in order to make a good decision? And we looked into our network of friends. We said, this person has this kind of knowledge, and this person has this kind of knowledge. So we're teaching our children to reach out to their communities and not just type on the computer. Granted, AI can teach us how to look for a good car, but it's not personal, and it doesn't it doesn't create further community. When you ask for help, you allow someone to be in service for you, and that builds community. So I think that's my thoughts on that.
It needs to be very intentional.
And not a lot of families. We're very blessed with a very large family, so it was easy to have multi-generations. If you don't have that, it's a lot harder, and it needs to be intentional.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm going to go next to Connie, because I know that she is not grounded in a normal family. And so I'm going to ask you, what do you think?
Well, I when raising my kids in a nuclear family, I realized it doesn't work. It's an absurd situation as far as I'm concerned. And I brought in various young, I brought in a Hopi young woman to be there with our family, to help with the family. you know, and a French young woman to come in, because it's just craziness to be isolated in that little box. And I saw through the indigenous people that, you know, the aunties and the uncles and we just came from Australia, and everybody is an auntie or an uncle or a sister, everyone. And so in the Aboriginal ways, and in the native ways as well, it's the whole village is raises the kids, so the kids have options to who they want to model after. You know, when they're stuck in a nuclear family and they've only got these two people with their various stuff they're working through, you know, because we're all on this journey of learning and growing. And so here are the kids stuck in this box with these two people that are in their triggers and in their processes, you know, in the native way, when they just have all these choices. Oh, okay, that's a behavior pattern. I see that, and I see this behavior pattern. I see that behavior pattern. So it's not just handed down through the generations, specific wounds and traumas, etc. And so I would just say that for me, in this evolutionary upward spiral we're in, okay, as we're moving into this oneness of, you know, the oneness is on everyone's lips now in the consciousness field, and it's my understanding that the veil is thinning, that we're just getting it. We're going to get it one day, that we are one, and that, you know, we're not all alike, but, you know, we're all parts of the whole, and that's sort of maybe instant community, you know, because I can't see communities aren't working, you know, there's a lot of problems in India with the community there. Damanhur, I think it's Damanhur, or the other one. I'm not can't remember the name, but a lot of these communities are having a tough time that have been forerunners. So something wants to happen beyond all that. You know, something's emerging, something's coming forth that we can't even imagine, because it's tough stuff trying to put together a community with various challenges, interpersonal challenges, etc., etc. So I just know that there's something coming on the planet that's never been here, and it could have something to do with this breakthrough into oneness, into seeing and knowing we are one. So that's all I can say is, yeah, let's
Well,
see what happens. And bring it to pass, make choices, bring it to pass. This conversation is bringing together various points of view and stuff in that higher frequency of going forward into a higher vibration.
thank you so much, Connie. Absolutely. I think it is going to change the world. And how fast it changes the world, I think, is going to knock our socks off. And I'd like to invite Tammy to have a say. And what do you think about the environments within which children are taught, and the idea that it takes a village?
Well, I was going to say, you know, I wasn't really blessed by the school system. And I'm not going to use the word failure, because I'm in the same school as Connie and Lisa and thank you, and Josette. But it was a good teaching ground of what doesn't work for so many kids. And so I see a lot of villages starting to erupt very successfully. And I'll give an example. And they're based on compassion and oneness, which they're vegan communities. And one of them is Satna Forest. Satna Forest is in India. They've started quite a few communities, and they've taken completely drought, parched land and turned it into thriving ecosystems, very sustainable, thriving ecosystems that they have thousands of visitors, thousands of people live there, self-sustained. and it works because it's based on a principle of ahimsa, do no harm. And one of the grandmothers in our community, Judy Carmen, wrote a book called Homo Ahimsa, Who We Really Are and How We're going to Save the World. And that's how we will save the world, when we realize that we are people of non-harm. That's why veganism makes sense. It's not some pie in the sky, far out of reach peas. You know, I grew up on moose meat. I grew up in Northern Ontario. My dad didn't have a lot of money. My family didn't have a lot of money. That's where we got some of our food that we ate. I didn't question it. I preferred fruit and vegetables all the time, but it was when my dad went out hunting with my brother and he shot a moose and he started to cry. And he said, I don't have to hunt for my family anymore. I'm not going to kill another animal. And, you know, so part of his evolution as a man that, you know, was raised on the earth in the middle of Algonquin Park on dirt floors, and was that he was not going to kill any more animals or partake in that at some point. It was just his natural evolution, which you never would have thought would happen to him in this lifetime. And I think we're all moving towards that. And I think it's making the shift from normalized violence, again, as I say, to ahimsa, to beings, because we're not really Homo sapiens. We're not really that intelligent. I mean, we really need to understand that we haven't acted like we're very intelligent. It's not our fault. We are just following orders. And because we're a community, we're people that need to connect, we're social. And so a lot of my friends said they have a hard time giving up the way that they eat because they don't want to feel alienated from their families. I understand that. You know, there's a lot of loss in the world. And I think if we look at, I'm writing a book right now on accumulative grief. And if we're going to look at healing grief and trauma, we have to look at what we're putting in our bodies and how much grief and trauma that the flesh and secretions of these beings have endured when we're looking at systemic anxiety and grief, and how easy it is to heal it, you know?
Yeah.
So I believe the communities that are going to work in the future and the systems of teaching are going to be normalized ahimsa communities that support life on every level, you know,
Oh, I love that,
on
Tammy.
every level.
On every level.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. It has been, I've been advised that we are going to be transitioning early, going over at 1:45. So this is the scramble to catch up with. Mary, I'm going to bring you on in just a few moments. I want to have Josette come in and have her say on the environment of how we teach our children.
Well, given what everyone said, which is wonderful and beautiful, and lovely things happening in India, I've lived in many communities over the years, of course, growing up in the 60s and all that. But now I would have to say, given that I live in Western culture, I would reach out to all grandparents. Be involved. Be involved in your grandchildren's lives. Go to the schools, teach your wisdom, bring it forward, teach them and help them see the interconnectedness of all life by respecting them, of course, and listening to them, but be involved. I am graced to live in a household with my two granddaughters and learn as much from them as they learn from me, and keeps me young, let me tell you. But separating ourselves out and into retirement communities, or I don't know, just separate lives, separation is not the way. Interconnection is the way. So my message is be involved.
Thank you so much. I so agree with you. I could not agree with you more. And the joy that we get from being with our grandchildren, and they weave us into the now world of reality. And we have habitually we have stepped back. And that has been supported by the television, mainstream, everything. And so I'm deeply grateful for your perspective on that. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to introduce Mary Thorpe, who has listened to all of our conversation. And she's going to give us a summary. Now, she is a grandmother who is just now moving into is homeschooling her children, her grandchildren. And so all of our conversation has given her food for thought. And I hope she will give us a summary and some overview and a taste for what we're going to be encountering in our in interaction with our audience at theconversation.cc. And so, Mary, it's over to you.
Thank you, Shannon. What a wonderful conversation today. Thank you all so much. What I wanted to start what I've been inspired by is in 2009 at the Vancouver Peace Conference, the Dalai Lama said, the world will be saved by the Western woman or by Western women. And I am delighted to be in this conversation with each one of you and all of, I don't usually say this, but all of our sisters around the world. I'm just so inspired by what each one of you said, starting with Josette, who said, listen to the children, listen to them. And then on to Connie, who, what stood out for me that I heard you say over and over again, Connie, was trust. Trust them, trust the children, trust the universe, trust each other, trust each of us. And in that will emerge this whole connection of that we are one. That we are one with the universe, that we literally, when we listen, we can trust that what is natural to us will emerge. And then Lisa, who I'm inspired by your continuous excitement and passion about what the internet makes possible for us, that it takes us, you know how we grew up with books and how those took us on amazing adventures. And from here, the internet can even take us beyond literally to the universe in ways that weren't available to us. And how social media gives us the ability to connect. You know, some of us stay in our little spaces at home thinking we're connected with other people, but then many of us use it to literally connect with people who, like, I always listen to the universe when somebody sends me an invitation. I write back to them and say, oh, thank you for the friend request. Let's talk. And it's introduced me to people who there's no way I would have ever had the opportunity to meet. It's wonderful. But I have to trust. I trust that if those people are meant to connect with me, they will. The ones who are just doing it by rote or by automaticity, you know, I never see them again. And then I want to speak about what you said, Tammy. And I'm like so moved by thinking about being able to be people who cause no harm, do no harm. It's like in the heart of every one of us. And I think about the bug on my wall that I smashed last night as I was brushing my teeth. It caught my attention. It's like I don't even give it a second thought until I hear you. And then I hear myself saying, somebody was saying, like, yikes, we have mice in our house. And we live in the mountains of West Virginia, and we just say, it's part of living with nature. So we all have further east to go, or further west, depending on what direction you're headed. And then the whole conversation about grandparents and sharing our wisdom. And I think what it calls up for me is the importance of all of us. I can feel myself dwindling away, my importance. It's not the same way that it used to be when I was like going here and going there. So, someone said health is a function of participation. And I'm participating. I don't care what age it is. I think about young people who find themselves in their rooms and they don't talk to anybody else. And it's like for them, it's the same thing. Health is a function of participation. The question is how are you going to participate? And then I love what we've been saying today about how each one of the beings that are come to the planet have their gift. So we think about children as having their gift, but so do the deer that we watch out the window as we eat lunch. And we had a groundhog the other day crawling around outside and hearing the slightest little peep. And it's like attention, talk about presence, and running across the yard. And, all of those things are what's possible. Both I remind myself, like, wow, what if I could hear the way they hear? What would I be listening to? What are those vibrations that I'm not tuned into yet? So anyway, Shannon, I think that gives a little tiny taste of what's been covered today, and I thank and appreciate each one of you. I don't know how many people are over in the afterglow. It's the first day, remember, and I'm sure people will be joining us. So I think everybody's that's there is looking forward to have more conversation with each one of you.
Well, thank you so much, Mary. That helps to encapsulate the vibrance and knowledge and wisdom that has come through all of us, and I'm so grateful to have that. That summary conclusion, and there is no conclusion because the conversation continues, although I know some of us are not going to be able to continue for the whole hour over there, but it is there for everyone 24/7. Marco and Jamin Shively have opened the conversation.cc for everyone to go and spend time in conversation on matters that matter. And it is through our participation in creating the future that creates the future that we want. And so please come and be a part of the conversation. The Zoom link ID numbers, I'm hoping that our tech guys will put it up on screen, but I'll just tell you that it's the zoom.us/J/595-172-819. You can also go to, for the rest of the exciting experiences to do with Earthstock, you can go to the virtual world and see over 80 different films, and that's available through the broadcast link in the Earthstock summit.com website. Well, I'm just, Lisa, do you have something that you wanted to add?
Yeah. So the
Virtual world, and the young folk, I think, are really going to love this one. The virtual world is a place where you can go and connect with the 80 videos, the online broadcast. You can chat with other players. You can go to the different presenters and learn about them. It's actually amazing. I'm not a virtual world person, but I kind of want to be in this one. So what you do is you go to the Earthstock website, and if you go to ways to watch on the tab, one of the options is virtual world. And you can go there and watch the videos, watch the live broadcast. The other way that you can watch the live broadcast is to go onto the website, again, earthstocksummit.com, and right on the home page, there's a watch now button. And that's the simplest way to do it. So I'm excited to be in the afterglow with you ladies. I think we're going to have some fun conversations, and hopefully some of our audience will come and chat with us as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you so, so much, Lisa. And I look forward to meeting you all over at the conversation for the afterglow. I'm going to hit my leave and join button because